Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in time and space. Welcome to Just the Word TV, and thank you for joining our daily morning devotion. This channel is built on one mission to help you hear what God actually said, not tradition, and just the Word. So, in our previous devotions, we've been talking about the book of Proverbs. And yesterday's devotion, we specifically looked at chapter 5, looking at verses 14 to 11, where Solomon outlined the heavy price of ignoring wisdom. He described a scene of total regret where a person looks back at their life and realizes they hated instruction and despised correction. The text depicted a physical and emotional crash, describing how the flesh and body are consumed. It was a grim picture of how the temporary excitement of temptation eventually gives way to public disgrace and internal misery. However, Solomon does not leave the reader in that place of despair. In verses 15 to 20, the tone of the teaching shifts dramatically. Solomon moves from warning about the destruction of sin to explaining the safety, logic, and blessing of faithfulness. He transitions from showing what you lose by wandering to showing what you gain by staying committed. So, instruction begins in verse 15 with a clear metaphor about where we should find satisfaction. The text says, drink waters out of thine own cistern, and running waters out of thine own well. In the ancient world, water was a precious resource, and a cistern or a well was a vital part of a home's survival and stability. A cistern was a private reservoir, distinct from public water sources that anyone could access. By using this imagery, Solomon is teaching that your intimacy and your emotional fulfillment belong within your own covenant. The cistern represents the relationship God has given you, your marriage, and your specific boundaries. The instruction to drink from thine own well means that God has designed satisfaction to be found within the place He assigned you, not outside of it. Often, temptation suggests that boundaries are restrictive or that they keep us from enjoying life. However, Solomon presents the opposite view. He suggests that boundaries of a covenant are what make the water safe, clean, and refreshing. Faithfulness is not a restriction on your life, it is the protection on your life. It ensures that the source of your satisfaction remains pure and available. I don't know if anyone's ever used a water filter on their pipe or their where they receive water from. I don't know if you ever use a water filter, but faithfulness becomes that type of filter to make sure that the water you're drinking is of good quality, is of good of it's clean. Most importantly, filter's main job is to make sure that the water that you're drinking or whatever it is that you're drinking is of clean substance. So there's no bacterial, no contaminants in it, no weird bacteria in it. The filter takes care of all of that. So faithfulness makes sure that the water that's in your cistern is clean, that is safe to drink, and is pure and available for you to drink from at all times. Solomon then continues his line of reasoning in verse 16 by describing the consequences of stepping outside of those boundaries. He asks, let thy fountains be dispersed abroad and rivers of water in the streets. This verse highlights the danger of scattering yourself. When water is kept in a well, it is gathered, deep, and useful. But if that water is poured out into the streets, it becomes wasted. It flows into the gutters, mixes with the dirt, and serves no purpose. This imagery applies to human intimacy and energy. When a person engages in unfaithfulness or chases temptation, they are dispersing their fountains abroad. They are scattering their emotional, spiritual, and physical energy in places where it does not belong. Intimacy is meant to be concentrated and focused, which gives it its power and meaning. When it is scattered among strangers or in casual encounters, it loses its value. Faithfulness keeps a person centered and grounded, whereas temptation leaves a person divided and diluted. To reinforce the need for boundaries, Solomon states in verse 17, let them be only thine own, and not strangers with thee. This is a call for exclusivity. The text emphasizes that there are parts of your life, specifically your affections and your physical body, that are not meant for public consumption. They are not to be shared with strangers. Stability in a relationship comes from the knowledge that what you have is exclusive. Trust is built on the fact that the cistern is not open to the public. When you keep your affections only thine own, you create a secure environment where trust can grow. This verse teaches that purity is a form of security. It guards against the complications, diseases, and emotional turmoil that comes from sharing intimacy with strangers. By maintaining exclusivity, you protect the value of that relationship. I don't think I need to explain. Um, what I just said there was pretty surface level, but I actually go a little bit deeper in terms of what I mean by sharing particular things. Sharing your water, sharing parts of your sister to other people. Um, especially when I talk about when I just said talked about any type of diseases, any type of anything like that, and it protects you from any type of complications, diseases, or any type of emotional turmoil. All right. Moving from protection to enjoyment, Solomon describes the positive experience of a faithful marriage in verse 18. He writes, "Let thy fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of thy youth." Here, the text moves beyond simply avoiding sin and encourages active joy. The word blessed suggests that this union has God's favor and approval upon it. It is a good thing designed by the Creator. Solomon excessively instructs the reader to rejoice. This counters the false narrative that faithfulness is boring or stagnant. The world often portrays commitment as a burden, suggesting that excitement is found only in the new or the forbidden. Solomon argues that true blessing and deep joy are found in the commitment to the wife of thy youth. This implies a history of and a shared life that adds depth to the relationship. Faithfulness is designed to be joyful and satisfying, providing a source of emotional and spiritual strength that a fleeting encounter can never offer. So so to me, when saying the wife of thy youth, he's talking about wisdom, right? Remember, we started this whole analysis on Proverbs personifying wisdom, right? And we are to keep wisdom close to us. So when keep wisdom close to us, and we're to make sure we are learning the wisdom of God, right? This personified wisdom, we're learning this in our youth. So the wife of thy youth. When I see that, I'm thinking of the fact that we are creating a relationship with wisdom, right? We are entering a type of marriage with wisdom, a type of marriage that we are going to walk side by side with wisdom. We're going to sometimes allow wisdom to not sometimes we're going to allow wisdom to lead in everything. Um, and what it's again a lot of personification that Solomon is using. But if we have to make sure we're getting that context of personification, things are being personified. Wisdom, especially, is being personified, and is being personified so we can have that understanding of what it means to be in a relationship with wisdom, what it means to constantly have wisdom on your side, to constantly have wisdom on your tongue, to constantly have wisdom within your spirit. Next, verse 19 expands on this idea of satisfaction with vivid imagery. Let her be as the loving hind and pleasant roe. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with her love. Now, when I first heard about this statement, right, I'm thinking, well, all right, God is saying, you know what? You have your wife, she has her breasts, you go ahead and you let her breast satisfy thee. But again, I was not reading this and I did not see it from the context of the fact that Solomon has been personifying wisdom this entire time. So, what he's talking about here is not actually your wife, right? Not actually your physical wife. He's talking about when you're having this relationship with wisdom, right? This relationship with wisdom, and he's describing all the things. Remember, he's personifying wisdom as a woman. So a woman has breasts. A woman has a lovely hind, right? Don't look at me the wrong way. Don't take me the wrong way when I'm saying this, right? Um, right. It's trying to show you a intimacy that is basically that you can relate with, right? I can't believe I don't want to say this. Men can relate with being satisfied by the breast of their wife, right? You can relate to it. So in the same way that you are personifying wisdom or personifying wisdom here, we are to have that same type of relationship with wisdom, to be satisfied. at all times with wisdom at all times, and to be ravished with her love. So to and her love, remember, the love is going to be different. The type of love that wisdom is going to give you is going to be a little bit different, right? And to always be ravished with the love of wisdom. All right, so let me continue. So Solomon is using poetic language to describe the beauty and tenderness of the marital bond. The instruction here is to be fully invested in the person you are in covenant with, right? So that's the surface level of it, but also to understand the personification of wisdom and how you're supposed to be approaching wisdom in that sense. The phrase satisfy thee at all times indicates you do not need to look elsewhere for fulfillment. If you nurture the relationship you have, it is capable of meeting your needs. The text concludes the verse with the command to be ravished always with her love. To be ravished means to be captivated or intoxicated. It is an active choice to focus your desire and your attention on your own spouse. Satisfaction grows where you choose to nurture it. Real fulfillment increases through commitment, not through wandering from person to person. Finally, Solomon poses a logical question in verse 20 to close this section of the teaching. He asks, "And why wilt thou, my son, be ravished with a strange woman, and embrace the bosom of a stranger?" After establishing that water from your own well is sweet, that exclusivity brings security, and that covenant love is blessed, the appeal to wander makes no sense. Solomon forces the reader to look at the situation logically. Why would you trade the safety, blessing, and deep joy of a covenant for the danger and instability of a stranger? Why would you trade the wisdom of God for the wisdom of for the human wisdom of a stranger? Why would you nest yourself in the bosom of a stranger and try to fill yourself with the fleeting instability of a stranger when God's wisdom is everlasting, it is eternal, it never fades. Temptation offers a quick moment of excitement, but as the previous verses establish, it ends in regret. Faithfulness, on the other hand, offers steady joy and long-term blessing. The strange woman represents a destructive path that mimics intimacy but delivers death. Solomon challenges the reader to see that there is no rational reason to chase destruction when joy is already available at home. In summary, this passage stands in stark contrast to the verses that came before it. Verses 11 through 14 showed the pain, regret, and financial ruin that follow the path of the wicked. Verses 15 to 20 show the stability, joy, and satisfaction that come from walking in wisdom and faithfulness. Solomon's teaching is very clear. Faithfulness preserves your joy, while temptation ultimately destroys it. By drinking from your own well, you find that God's design for boundaries is actually his design for your greatest blessing. Now, we're talking about drinking from your own cistern, drinking from your own well, but making sure that the water that's in that well is clean, making sure that it's pure, making sure that it's of drinking quality. Why am I saying this? Because people will hear drink from your own well, and they will go back into their human wisdom and fill their cistern or well with their human wisdom. And come to find out that as they keep drinking from that well full of human wisdom, they're getting sicker. They're feeling more depressed. Their life is not getting any better. And that's because faithfulness is required in order to drink from your own cistern, in order to drink from your own well. Because as you allow faithfulness and God's wisdom to rule, you are now allowing pure water to now fill your cistern. So that when you're now dipping into your own cistern to drink, when you're now dipping into your cistern to have someone else to drink, it's you can now you can rest assured that it's filled with pure water, that it's filled with clean water, that you're able to drink. You don't have to worry about if it's going to give you a stomach ache or anything like that, because it was filtered through faithfulness. So what Solomon is trying to show you is that we don't want an open cistern, right? We don't want an open waterway. We don't want ourselves to be completely open to everything, because the minute that we become completely open, we start to disperse the water that is within us. And that water gets dispersed haphazardly. Now it's in places where it doesn't need to be. It's on the floor. It's in cups where it didn't need to be in the first place. All because you chose not to allow faithfulness to be your filter. So I guess the idea today is um we see we see from verses 15 to 20 what happens when we walk in faithfulness. What happens when we walk in faithfulness to the wisdom, into faithfulness into God's wisdom, faithfulness in the woman of wisdom, faithfulness in the personification of wisdom that we're being taught here in Proverbs. Um, it shows us that, or it gives us this logical question, and I'll leave this logical question. If Proverbs is now giving us the idea that when we walk against the wisdom of God, we are only going to, receive chaos. Why is it that we continue to walk in that temptation? Or why is it that when we're, even if we walk in that temptation and nothing clicks to the fact that, you know what? This is completely against the wisdom of God. I need to do something different. Um, all of this, the Bible is just trying to get you aware of the particular boundaries that come with the wisdom of God. And while most people might think that the boundaries that come with the wisdom of God is very restrictive, it does not allow you to have your freedom. You will find that when you live outside of God's wisdom, when you live outside of the boundaries that He's created for His wisdom, you'll find that you'll wish, because the world will take advantage of the fact that you have no boundaries. The world will make it their business to exploit, to abuse every part of you that you choose not to have a boundary in, every part of you that you choose not to secure with a boundary. So I be very aware of the fact that boundaries are needed, and God has designed our characters. He has designed the wisdom. He has designed everything to make sure that we have boundaries. Because why would he, through Proverbs now, giving us this wisdom for discernment? Why would we need discernment in the first place? Because we need to have that understanding of knowing when to have a boundary up, when we can allow this to be open, when this needs to be half open, half open. We need that discernment to understand what it is that we're looking at. Otherwise, we might be pulling in someone else's toxic waste into our cistern, not understanding it and wondering why we feel so sick. So until next time, everyone, stay grounded, stay humbled, and above all else, stay aligned with just the word. Thank you.